been COVID on that. So can I have the next slide, please? So yeah, I'm going to talk about, introduce myself, introduce why we're looking at tourism in Arumand, all about our town transformation story, just in brief, because that's a story by itself. What opportunities do we have? What have we done so far? What we've been successful at? What do we still need to look at? Our obstacles? What have we got on the table for the future? So next slide. So first of all, I come with greetings from Arumand. It's fantastic to be able to stand up here as part of a tourism forum and actually say, yes, we are doing tourism, we have arrived. We might also be the new kid on the block, but we're very, very much here to stay. So on behalf of the Arumand community and everyone associated with it, we send our greetings to you today. So a little bit about me. You might think, well, why is somebody who obviously has got a bit of a strange accent talking about the Spurgebied, Southside Park and Arumand? My name is Sue Cooper. I'm the general manager of one of the organisations in Arumand that's actively involved in tourism. I'm the general manager of an organisation called OMD 2030. I've been in Namibia now for about 18 years, and I've been involved in this special area of the country ever since the start. When I first came, I used to take youth groups and school groups into the Spurgebied. We did lots of environmental projects, including touching on some of the things that were mentioned this morning. I was part of a group that helped renovate what is now Ontonda Environmental Education Centre. We were part of a group that helped put the Kharas walking trail together, and many, many other trips into the Spurgebied with school groups and with youth groups, and I've really been involved ever since. I still now in my spare time volunteer for the brown hyena research project, so I monitor all the cameras that they have in the area. Then they stretch all the way from eBay right the way down the coastal area to the Orange River. So I'm still involved there as well. My background is in the environment and in teaching. Worked at the international school for a while, and I worked for the Gondwana collection for 5 years as well. So I have had a bit of tourism background. For Gondwana, I was mainly concerned with staff training and their environmental sustainability projects, and that's where I came to know Hazel Milne from the Eco Awards. So we've had a house in Arumand since 2010. Came back to live permanently there 2015, and since then really been involved in the Arumand story, the town transformation and tourism story. I do need to mention one other person here that I think has had a huge influence on me and my understanding of the Spurgebied as well. I was fortunate to marry a Namibian, and I think probably somebody who knows more about this area than anybody else. Trig Cooper. I think Harry talked a lot about the land use plan and what went on prior to this park being proclaimed this morning, and he was a big part of that. So I have literally lived and dreamed this area on a daily basis the whole time I've been here. And now I'm really delighted to be part of the Arumand team that is pushing our tourism development in the area. Next slide, please. Okay, so why tourism in Arumand? Our town needs to transform. When we started looking at tourism, the life of mine for Nanda was actually last year. It was going to close last year. And without the mine, the town wouldn't have survived. Remember with Arumand, we're talking about a fully private town, and its whole being was based on the mine. Everything about it was based on the mine. So if the mine closes without anything in its place, the town goes. It also becomes a ghost town. So we needed to find ways to transform Arumand. What happens when the mine goes? And even now, thank goodness, it's been extended, the life of mine's been extended by about 20 years, but there will still come a time when the mine's not going to be there. And we need to be forward-thinking. We need to be proactive about what's going to happen and start making plans while the mine is there and can help us, and we can work in partnership together. We had lots of experts in to try and help us find the way forward, and there was a consensus that on average it takes 15 years to transform a town. Now this was in 2015. One of the first vehicles that was formed to help with this town transformation process was OMD 2030, because that's the time, in theory, when the process should be complete. Now the OMD 2030 has changed many times since it was first came into being, but that was the reason behind 2030. It takes 15 years. Now we're already at 2022, so we're halfway along that process. Lots of feasibility studies were undergone, and out of the feasibility studies, one of the key recommendations to help diversify the economy in the town was to try and set up a tourism industry in Arumand. And some of the reasons I've given there, you know, we are the gateway, form one of the gateways to what is now the Kharas National Park. So there's potential there for regional routes and integration with the region. We have a border post, so again, potential for cross-border links and integration there. We are endowed with natural assets. We're surrounded by the national park, we have a beach, the Orange River mouth, sand dunes, wildlife, Ramsar site, lots of endemic plants. I could go on and tell you all day about that. Again, I'm going to stop myself. We have a very exciting mining and social history, and we have the infrastructure. We already have sports facilities, for example, a golf course, an airport, and a fantastic tarmac road from Rosh Pinah, which in itself is a tourism attraction to the area. Next one. The town transformation is about diversifying the economy, but it's also about so many other things. So in our town transformation program, we're trying to look to do all these things. We want Arumand to be a town where people are proud to belong. We want to conserve all these assets that we have in the town and the surrounding area. We want to be able to integrate. We're desperate to link up our town with all the other ones in the area. And of course, economic diversity plays a key role in that. And all of those things can be done with the aid of tourism. So tourism is very, very important to us. Next. So who's involved in tourism in Arumand? I'm not standing up here talking about my organisation, I'm actually talking about how we can move tourism forward in Arumand as a whole. And really there are four groups of people who are pushing tourism from the top. There is our town council, and you can see amongst their the things that they're responsible for are the public tourism and infrastructure and compliance. There is OMDIS, whose chief role is economic diversification. You can see also they are trying to develop an entrepreneurial culture, create new large industries, capacity building, and OMDIS are the organisation that has been granted the Orange River tourism concession, which we're very, very pleased about, and Mr. Tony Beschinger from OMDIS will be talking about that a little bit later. Ourselves, OMD 2030, we represent the people, the community. So our role in this whole process is to try and get the community involved. What does our community want for the future? How can they actively participate in what is happening? How can they play a real part in whatever is going to come to Arumand? So in this case, what can they do in relation to tourism? We're the face of tourism. We run the Tourism Information Centre. We now run the newly refurbished, revamped and fantastic Jasper House Museum. And we also look at environmental and social sustainability. And then also we must make mention of NAMDEB. NAMDEB, yes, they're there to manage their management of their risk. They're there to make sure that the legacy that they leave is very important and enables us to move on. But they're also actively involved in tourism where they can be. And they and other organisations act as enablers to help us on our tourism journey. Next. So, what do? We've now got organisations involved in tourism. What do we do next? So, the first thing we need to do is have a tourism strategy. The summary of it really is on the screen there. We've got 6 layers to it. Some are more in our control than others. And the top 2 layers are tourism magnets. They could be real game changers for the town. With the bottom 4 layers, we could be a stay another day destination. We can do things to make people want to stay one more day, maybe make that into 2 more days. But if some of the top things could come to fruition, that would make a huge difference. So we want to look at routes and access, and you can see there the Salkai National Park, the concessions there are part of it, and there is a concessionaire now in Arumand, so it's fantastic. You see there the Shamesh Road, that's the huge thing for us. That opening up that road enables us to link mining towns. It's a big obstacle, that's what's stopping the link at the moment. Secondly, some attractions, some opportunities for attractions. I think Gita already mentioned, we have the Born Jesus shipwreck in Arumand. There's a potential, an international potential there for a shipwreck museum that would attract people, proud locals all the way through to the international market. There's opportunities for maybe a mining museum, maybe following on from the talk from Nanda earlier on, and for mine tools, attractions there. The third layer, we need to look at our accommodation. We need to work out what have we already got, what activities and facilities are already there, and what more do we need to put in place. We need to look at culture and hospitality in the town. We haven't got a track record in tourism. And also our town branding and marketing. So those are really the 6 layers of our tourism strategy. We try to work from the bottom up and from the top down, but from the top down we really do require collaboration and cooperation of many stakeholders. Next slide, please. So how have we done so far? Progress to date. Okay, our routes and access, we've had very little progress. If you look on the left there on your screen, that's what's envisaged. That is linking up mining towns. That is taking the Shamesh Road from Arumand to Luderitz, or from Luderitz to Arumand, so that neither of us are a dead end. That's completing the circuit. It will make a massive difference. One of the concessions, as I said, has already been advertised and acquired. The one that hasn't been acquired, though, is the one up the coast from Arumand to Bournemouth Arch. You can get to Bournemouth Arch from Luderitz at the moment, but you can't get to Bournemouth Arch from Arumand. And that, when people hear about the Spurgebiet, that's what they know. They know Bournemouth Arch. It is a concession. It is there for somebody to have in the future, but it's not been released yet. And as I said, the progress is with the Arumand River concession there. The attractions, the Born Jesus shipwreck from 1533, the potential for that, as I said, is enormous. It requires stakeholder collaboration from all sorts of different ministries and industries and communities to get that up and running. And there's been talks going on already for about 4 or 5 years, but so far we haven't made much progress with that. The idea of a mining museum is a relatively recent idea, and there's feasibility studies and it's in a concept phase at the moment. And then the last one I have on here, the most common question that visitors ask us when they come to the tourism centre is, can we go on a mine tour? We want to see how the diamonds are mined. Again, it requires a lot of collaboration. Again, it is being looked at currently this year, so hopefully we will make some progress in that area. Next slide, please. Thank you. In relation to accommodation, a little bit more progress, but the bottom line is we haven't got enough accommodation really to cope with the contractors that are in town for mining at the moment. We do need more accommodation in Arumand, and that's really been held back. That progress has been held up for many reasons, but there's a problem with private property ownership. Some people have been able to buy their houses, but that process has stopped at the moment. So land allocation and private property ownership is causing a hindrance and is causing difficulty for potential investors coming into town as well. There has been some limited success. Some people have been able to buy their homes, and out of that, some of them have converted them into self-catering establishments and small guest houses. So we have had, I think it's 3 self-catering establishments and a couple of guest houses that have been made available this year. And on Deeps, I'm currently working with an SME to make another guest house that will be operational very soon. So we have had progress, we keep going with the rest. Now, activities and facilities, I think that's probably where we've made major progress. There are lots of things that have been put in place or that we can do in Arumand. We have e-bikes, we have guided and unguided walking tours. We have a town walking tour, and we're about to have an art walking tour as well. There are things to do. There are night markets regularly, and farmers markets and fun runs. So there are things for tourists to do when they are in town. So opportunity for sundowns, golf, fishing, birding, kayaking, and of course you mustn't forget our oryx. I think that's what people know us for. You know, our oryx in the town, our oryx on the golf course, our oryx at the beach. And activities, the Jasper House Museum has been recently renovated and it was just officially opened last month. That's a fantastic place to take people to hear about the Arumand history, the natural history, archaeology, geology of the area and the park, the present and what we envisage for the future. We have had, in the last year, 11 murals commissioned and 3 sculptures that are now around town for people to look at, and 2 indoor art installations. And we have a giant photo frame there at the Orange River mouth. Can you just go back a second? Just to give you an idea, on the left there, that's one of the murals. People at the museum. The one I particularly want to look at is the sculpture there on the bottom left. That's a sculpture that you'll find in the museum, and it represents the gold coins that were found in the Bon Jesus shipwreck. And then finally, as you drive into town now, you will be welcomed by our Welcome Man sculpture. Okay, next slide, thanks. Culture and hospitality. As I said, we haven't got a history of tourism, culture and hospitality, because we've never been a tourism town before. So it's something that we're aware of, we started working on. I think it's probably the area that COVID caused the most problems for, because we started with training, but people, I'm talking to people that have had this problem all along. People were cutting back, places were closing down, there's no point training people if they're not going to be there the next day. So we made a start with hospitality and training. We're going to continue with that. But one success that we did have last year is Edgar Nadir from Nature Campus came in and trained 6 local people to become local tour guides, and they're now fully qualified and they're absolutely desperate for visitors so they can tell them their story and pass on all the knowledge that they know. So this is using the local community in tourism. Town marketing and branding, I think we've probably been very successful in this area or compared to some of the other areas that I've talked to you about. We have an information centre, we have a website for tourism. We won the Small Town of the Year, Namibian Small Town of the Year at the Tourism Expo in 2018, which really pushed us into the national spotlight. We're the first town in Namibia to undergo an Eco Awards audit and assessment. And we have had lots of articles in various different publications, from international publications, South African publications and local publications, and also have sponsored various documentaries about Namibia. One television program series I'd just like to mention here that was specific to Arumand on One Africa TV last year. There was a series called Changemakers. And the whole series was devoted to the key players in the town's transformation, community leaders and activists, and famous people from Arumand. So we were lucky, for example, to feature the First Lady in one of the episodes, and people like Susie Isis, as well as the folk that are there at the moment, that are making a difference at the moment. And we also had a documentary film filmed in Arumand called Desert Paradise that was shown at international film festivals and was actually nominated for an award at an international film festival last year. So that's some of our progress to date. Our obstacles, I think you've heard of some of them, I've mentioned some of them as we've been going along. The routes, it's the key. They exist in theory. We have a super route all the way through the south now, linking Arumand, Luderitz, Aus and Roshpina, but it's there in theory but not in practice. We have a border that's currently closed with South Africa. Now there's potential for a super route there with a Northern Cape. Visit the flowers, come to Arumand, go to Roshpina and exit that way, or through the Richtersveld. But at the moment, our border post is closed. It's been closed for over 2 years, and that was a victim of COVID. And just to give you an idea, we can see South Africa. It's less than a kilometre away from us. And yet currently, due to the weather as well, if we want to go there, from Arumand, we have to go up to Keetmanshoek, then we have to go down to Ausenkerk just across the border. And it's there, we can see it, we can touch it, we can taste it. Some good news though, we have heard that the border, if all goes well, is due to open at the beginning of March. So that's tremendous news for us and the whole of the South, I think. And some other news that I actually only heard at the break this morning relates to the next statement there, that's an obstacle. For almost 2 years now, there's been no flights to Arumand. I look at my phone at lunchtime, and the good news is that West Air are resuming flights to Arumand as of next week. So that's also good news. So one of the reasons why I call them obstacles, they're not insurmountable. You just have to keep picking away at them, and eventually we're going to knock down all these obstacles. So that's fantastic news. I mentioned the Borgenfels concession, the slow progress with the Shipwreck Museum, our lack of hospitality culture and awareness of NTB compliance. If we haven't got a culture, the new businesses in town don't know what is required when they set up their business in order to be NTB compliant. Several years ago, part of our prize for winning the Small Town of the Year was for NTB to come down and to actually run workshops with tourism establishments and activities providers. Now we know why it's not happened, but that would be just a great thing to be able to do in the future. A lack of accommodation and of course the COVID story has put us behind with implementing some of our projects. But I think somebody mentioned this morning, although it's been a real shocker for tourism, it has given us opportunities because we've been able to march forward with some of our ideas and get them ready for the tourists to come without having the tourists in town saying, well, what can we do, where can we go? And we haven't got anything. So it has provided, it's given us a little bit of a space to get some of the work done that we hadn't done before. So there is that tiny, tiny glimpse amongst it all. The next slide. So, what's next? It's always very exciting to think what's next, where are we going to go next? We'd love some progress with the game changers, the routes, the Borgenfels, the shipwreck, the mine tours, etc. And we will not stop pushing for that, but we need your collaborative help to do that, because it's not going to be just a game changer for us. Those things are going to be game changers for the whole of the South as well. So we are asking for your support in those things. Next week, actually, we're starting with Eco Awards audits for our schools. Our schools are so keen to be involved in environmental sustainability. So Hazel and her team are coming next week. She's got a pack for the schools to do. They can't wait. They're going to do their audits. It's going to be good for Arumand, it's going to be good for tourism, and it's just going to make for a nicer town, and a town that people are proud of and that people want to belong to. We're excited about a potential biodiversity and social sustainability project at Swadcombe Hill, which is just outside of town. It contains many endemic plants. It has brown hyena wandering around it regularly. And it really, really needs protection, but it also needs the whole community on board to look after it. So we're really excited about the potential for that project as well. And of course, I've deliberately just didn't dwell on it. We're going to hear all about the concession development later this afternoon. So those are some of the things that we've got next. Just watch this space. And to finish, I remember when I first started working at Gondwana, I remember having a conversation with Manny Goldbeck, and he said, Sue, if you're going to start tourism business, there are two really key things you need to get right from the start, and you need to do. One is have a story to tell. Well, we've got loads and loads of stories to tell, so I think that's great. And everybody here, everyone that's talked today, has stories to tell. And the second one is you need tourism routes. Our routes are there in theory at the moment, but not in practice. But I do use the word, they are obstacles. If we are strong enough together, we'll work through that. We just need a positive mindset, and we need to everybody work towards the same goal. So I just leave you with a few images of the town and what you can experience when you come to Arumand. I encourage you all, please, to come and visit. No, we're open, we're very welcoming, we'd love to see you, and thank you very much for listening.